Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. We're going to be going through an article here. This time it is an interview that Keller, of course the Overwatch 2 director, did with NME from January 18th. So about, a day or two ago, 2 days ago, I guess, when you're getting this video, this came out. And, this is something I was going to talk about yesterday until that news broke about the Overwatch League collective bargaining thing. If you did not see that video, it will be linked in the cards, as well as at the end of this video. You can check it out there. This one a little more lighthearted and news about the future of Overwatch 2 as a game and not really the esport. I'm not going to go through every little thing in detail in this article. I'm going to kind of skim over it as we go through it. If you want to read the full article, it will be linked in the description as always. So if you want to follow along or read it for yourself, check it in the description down below. But this article focuses a lot on two main things, really, which is the campaign for Overwatch 2, the PvE mode, as well as balance and upcoming hero changes. That's kind of what the main stuff it focuses on. So we'll start with the first part of this article, which is really heavily talking about the campaign and the PvE mode, the story mode, whatever you want to call it. This opening thing here about him getting damaged and he's not that good at the role, in his words. But they go into here to talk a little bit, some interesting stuff about how the game was in a really interesting position. Keller, when talking about the kind of decision to split the game and split the PvP and PvE, said, quote, "We found ourselves in a position where we couldn't release all of the content that we were building for Overwatch 2 until the campaign was finished, and that development on the campaign was going slower than he wanted it to." This is information we kind of knew already, or at least kind of could read in between the lines, that the problem was more so that the campaign was taking a lot longer than possible, and with the way the game had been developed, they couldn't do anything with the PvP content until the PvE content was ready to go. I'm going to just take a shot in the dark here. This isn't like a dig at the Overwatch team or anything. I'm just going to guess a lot of the people on the Overwatch team either weren't necessarily as prepared for this as they thought they were. There were probably more technical challenges than that came up. Could also be something with narrative stuff going a little south. Obviously, Michael Chu left the team several years ago. That could have had some kind of impact on it, where they may have made some changes to the story. They may have kind of made a lot of decisions in that regard. So there may have been just a number of different things that really held it up. I'm sure COVID didn't help, and I'm sure a number of other factors hurt as well. But, he's saying here, we were in a position we couldn't really do anything about updating the PvP side of the game without pushing out the PvE side of the game, and so that's why they ultimately made the decision to separate them. And as he says here, we couldn't release all of the content that we were building for Overwatch 2 until the campaign was finished. We found ourselves saying, we're going to keep withholding content from our players so we can release everything together with our original strategy, the campaign, or we're going to have to change the way that we think about releasing the game. And it says here, as a result, Overwatch 2's campaign will be released gradually starting later this year, and Blizzard is still finalizing how its content will be rolled out. A chance to tell Overwatch's big overarching narrative is something that Keller is particularly excited about, as he points out that it's not something you can really do in the middle of a multiplayer game. Quote, "We can go into a lot more depth with not just the characters in the universe, but all of the big events that are happening inside of it. That's something the team is incredibly passionate about," says Keller, who adds that Overwatch's bright, hopeful, inspirational future is a setting the developer is keen to explore further. Look at that. Look at that group. Look at that trio right there. I'm super excited about the PvE. If you've been around the channel long enough, you know that I am very, very excited for the PvE. The thing that ultimately sold me on Overwatch was the world and the characters. I just think they're such a unique thing. The gameplay's fun, and I do enjoy the gameplay, but I don't even think the gameplay would have made me interested if I didn't just love the characters in the first place. Like, I wouldn't have never have played Overwatch if I wasn't so interested in the characters in the world. And so that to me is really the big thing. So I'm very excited for the PvE. And as someone super excited for the PvE, I don't really mind that we've had to wait for it this long. Because I'd rather it be good than it be bad. I always have that belief. There's a famous quote I want to say it's attributed to Satoru Iwata, the former president of Nintendo. I don't remember if it's him exactly, or if it's Shigeru Miyamoto. It's one of those two. I don't remember exactly. But it's the idea that a delayed game is eventually good. A rushed game is bad forever. And that's a very, very true statement. You know, a game can be rushed and eventually kind of gain that notoriety. It can gain that kind of like popularity once again. But it can never shake off the kind of stigma around it. You think about like Cyberpunk. There is so much negativity and such a stigma around Cyberpunk because it wasn't all that great on release. And same with something like No Man's Sky. Those games, like, I've heard a lot of great things about those games ever since then. But they can't shake that part of their launch. That they were buggy and problematic at launch. And they're always going to be remembered that way, just regardless of how good they got eventually. They're always going to be dealing with that early kind of distrust and early just kind of first impressions by the community. And so I think it's fine if this story mode gets delayed, as long as it's good. I'm curious what it means by the content will be rolled out. You know, if it'll be just like maybe we get the story missions and then we get the hero missions later, or if it's literally like we only get some of the story initially and then we get the rest of the story later. I'm hoping it's the former. I'd rather it be we're going to focus on getting the story out first, and then once the story's out, you'll get to do hero missions at a later date. Ideally, we get them all together, but this is just my assumption based on what we're seeing here. I'd rather it not be the type of thing where it's like, yeah, no, you just get the story in chunks. I'm hoping we get the whole story together, and then we get the stuff added on to the story, like the hero missions and whatnot, at a later point in time. But I suppose we shall see. Then they go on to talk about multiplayer after the time spent talking about the single-player stuff, it's not really single-player stuff, the campaign and the PvE stuff, which, like I said, very exciting stuff. We don't know a lot about it yet, other than some of the stuff from BlizzCon in 2019 and the BlizzCon Online in 2021, where they did focus on it a little bit. We haven't had a ton of stuff about it since then, so we still have a lot of stuff to kind of hopefully wait and see, but multiplayers we have right now, PvPs we have right now. And they talked a lot about kind of some of the things that have been going on and how they're kind of approaching the game going forward. This paragraph here is, I think, one of the biggest ones and one of the most important. Saying, for Blizzard, Keller says its lessons have been more wide scale. The director admits the studio still has a lot of work to do in addressing feedback regarding the game's reward and progression systems, and recalls Blizzard realizing in Overwatch 2's first season that its original plan to issue one major balance patch per season would not be enough to stay on top of the shooter's rapidly shifting meta. To that second part, that issuing one balance patch would not be enough to stay on top of the meta per season, yeah, we all could have told you that. We all knew that's going to be the way that it was. That was a problem in the past. And that's one of those things that I look at with Overwatch 2, where I feel like the dev team has made decisions that they have done in the past and were universally panned, and then they did them again for some reason because they figured that in Overwatch 2 that problem wouldn't be a problem anymore. Like with map pools. Map pools are not touched on in this article, but map pools were universally hated in Overwatch 1. Everybody hated them. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say everybody hated map pools. And then they brought them back in Overwatch 2 for some reason, and they're still there. So I'm hoping map pools go away as we go forward. I could see map pools coming back when the map pool is bigger, but I just think there's not enough maps. And to me, if you're into a map pool, it shouldn't be a seasonal map pool. Maybe do like a weekly map pool. But a seasonal map pool is just miserable, and it stinks. Like, I want to play Havana. I know not everyone loves Havana. I like Havana. Give me Havana. I want to play Numbani. I haven't played Numbani in how long? Since October. I haven't played Numbani since September, I guess. So let me play Numbani again, please. I would like to play on Numbani in my ranked games or in quick play, please. But they're saying here they have to do stuff with the reward and progression systems. They've done a lot better in Season 2 with providing some of the skins. It's all old skins mostly, except for that Brig skin that they had during Winter Wonderland, which was nice. That Bastion skin that you could get for one token, which is kind of useless. It should have just made it worth 0 tokens, but that was one of those things where you look at it and you're like, I mean, it's whatever, but it's also like that was kind of cheesy. That was kind of scummy, and just a little bit, just a little bit. 1 token, 1 coin, when you only gain coins in intervals of 10, so like you're not gonna be 1 shy. Like that one was a little weird. But I'm hoping that we get more reward and progression type of stuff. I just think they need to provide extra forms of currency, whether it be another currency that something that it costs, 2,000 of this bonus currency, which is equivalent to 1,000 of the premium currency. Even if it's something like that, where you can earn it, you just need to earn more of it to spend it on the same type of items. I'd be fine with that. I've talked about this at length. It's one of my really only major criticisms of Overwatch 2 is I just don't like the monetization system. And if it wasn't for the fact that I have a bunch of skins from Overwatch 1, I'd be way more upset. But like I would never buy skins when I already have some. And luckily, Junker Queen has gotten a good skin finally with the Zeus skin. But I didn't really like her legendary skin from the first battle pass. Ramatra got a good one with the Poseidon skin. Kiriko's had a couple good skins, have been something you could get. Sojourn has the commando skin, which I don't know if anyone else has noticed this. I don't know if I brought this up in a video or not. There's a hair glitch on Sojourn on that skin. I'll try to get a screenshot of it if I can. That's really funny to me, and it's been there since launch, and it hasn't been fixed. Unless it's been fixed since I've last checked. Like I said, I'll try to get a picture of it. But I don't know, just one of those weird things I noticed that has been there since Overwatch 2 launched. It hasn't been fixed. It's not that big a deal, obviously, but I just think it's funny. But so that's one of the things. I do hope that we get more reward and progression rewards. I think it just needs to be better done. I think there needs to be more aspects to it. I've seen a lot of people talk about Fortnite's Battle Pass. I think that is the main example. It's a Battle Pass where you complete the Battle Pass and you have enough money to buy the next Battle Pass, or you can buy a skin. And I think that's the best way to do it. I think you should be able to earn the currency to get a Battle Pass and not have to constantly rebuy them. Obviously, their goal is to get you to spend money on the Battle Pass. I think people are more likely to spend $10 on a Battle Pass than spend $20 on a skin. So if you make them buy 2 Battle Passes to get enough currency to buy 1 skin, they're going to feel more accomplished than if you make them buy $20 for a skin, right? Like that's kind of where I think it goes. They go in here to spend a decent amount of time talking about Roadhog, mainly that he's very strong and they want to nerf him and get him more in line. They talk specifically about the idea that Roadhog wasn't buffed. Other people were just nerfed, and the nerfs on other people raised Roadhog up, which is always an interesting kind of thing to see. We see that all the time. We see heroes where heroes around them get tuned down. That's usually how Genji gets very, very strong. Genji never usually gets nerfed or buffed. He usually just survives as other people get nerfed, and he becomes stronger. That's always how Genji gets strong, I swear. It is never any other way ever in Overwatch. It's always how Genji gets strong. And so, yeah, they talk here a bit about Roadhog and how they're going to tune him down a bit. And here's where they say it. He's overperforming because other heroes were changed, not because he was changed to be as strong as he was. Look at Kiriko. Look at that. And they say here, talking about how it would be very easy for us to change him so that he becomes unplayable or nerfed so hard that people would think he's a throw pick. And he likes to, he says we like to avoid that, so we're trying to be careful here, but at the same time we want to make our change meaningful enough to actually have a real impact on him and the game. And Keller adds that because the community will always try to find the strongest heroes to increase their chances of winning matches, Blizzard has to juggle a hands-on approach to balance with letting the community shape its own meta. There's a lot of nuance that goes into the balance, Keller explains. It can feel like there are certain heroes that are allowed to be strong or popular, and others that when they do become really strong, the community has a pretty adverse reaction to it. I think it's all very natural. One of the things we've been talking about internally is what happens when heroes that have mechanics that can be frustrating or stifling to play against become really powerful. Look at this old school picture. Look at that. That says Overwatch 2. This is an Overwatch 1 era picture. There's no beard there. He's got his helmet on. That's old Mercy. That's old Tracer. That's old Pharah. You can't lie to me. And he says here, it gives an example, which I think is an interesting one. When heroes like that become really powerful, meaning heroes that are a little more skill-based. Actually, sorry, he's talking more about heroes like Roadhog who have an ability where they can one-shot heroes. He says, when heroes like that become really powerful, the community can have a pretty big reaction to it. While there are others like Orisa, who is fairly powerful as well, her kit feels fair or more steady. I think the community will look at a hero like that, and if it becomes the new dominant tank, it's more accepted. Yes and no. I don't fully agree on that. I think anytime a hero is very, very strong, players are always frustrated about it. I think there is an aspect to it where, right, people will complain about Sojourn because she has a right-click that can insta-kill. But people are also upset about Sojourn because her left-click feels very strong as well. It's kind of true, but also not. Like, if Orisa was overpowered and was doing a lot of damage and was very hard to play against, people would be complaining. And it's always the type of thing where it's either the Widow thing where it's like one-shots are bad for the game, or it's the type of thing where it's like, his character's too hard to kill and it's bad for the game. So, Overwatch fans just complain about everything, but, that's the way things are. That's always how it's been. There's a couple other things he kind of talks about here with, they don't want heroes to feel the same. They want the tempo of every fight in the game to feel different all the time. They want the game to kind of evolve and change, whatnot. There's a push and pull. The last little bit here is where some cool stuff comes in. So, in terms of how things are going for 2023, they say here there's a lot to unpack, and he, of course, Aaron Keller, gets giddy discussing it. Aside from the campaign, the director says there are multiple heroes and a lot of maps planned for 2023, along with a lot more events at the game's ongoing Battle for Olympus, which of course ended already. Keller also teases several new and returning game modes, including an entirely new one he's so excited to announce, and a mysterious Season 3 skin that he thinks the community is going to go wild for. We've always had these types of things. Jeff Kaplan always said this stuff too. Returning game modes, I would imagine that's just going to be stuff like... returning game modes. The only returning game modes would be Assault, which I don't think is what he's talking about. Probably the Archives stuff. We already have Lunar New Year stuff, which is, returning game modes in air quotes. There's not really that many new game modes in that. But I think returning game modes, he's probably talking about the Archives missions. So Uprising, Retribution, and Storm Rising. I don't think we'll get a new one this year. I'd be surprised. I'd imagine they're going to put all that effort and energy into the story campaign. Though it's certainly possible that they did make a new one for this year. Because we have gotten some new stuff. Obviously, we got the Battle for Olympus, which I loved Battle for Olympus, by the way. I know some people didn't really love it. It's definitely a more casual fan type of thing, but I thought it was really fun. I thought it was enjoyable. I really liked what they did with Halloween this past year, and I know they didn't really add any new events for Winter Wonderland, but I love Winter Wonderland so much. And it's got like 4 or 5 modes packed in there already, so I think that's pretty cool. I definitely would love to see more with Lunar New Year. It's, I think, one of the weaker events in terms of just content, but it is what it is. So I guess we'll see what this new skin is eventually in some of these maps. I love he says a lot of maps planned for 2023, but I'm pretty sure it's just we get a map next season. Season 3, we get a map, I'm pretty sure. And I don't think we get a map every season. I think we're supposed to get a map every other season. But seasons 1 and 2, they wanted to kind of push a new map and a new hero for both. Season 1 and 2. So I think season 3 is when we get a new map and no new hero. And season 4 is when we get a new hero and no new map. So season 3, season 5, season 7 is when we should get new maps. So I think that only means 2 this year. But maybe it's 3. Maybe it's 3. No, it's probably like 2 or 3. Anyway, here, though, is one of the juiciest things I want to talk about. And this is the thing that I think is really, really big. And I'm going to end mainly with this topic because I think it is a huge thing. This paragraph, to me, is one of the most important ones. And it's a pretty big deal when you think about some of the things I've said before. So here they say, in the immediate future, Keller says the team is focusing on fleshing out Overwatch 2's roster of support heroes, which he admits offers the least amount of choice compared to the game's tanks or damage-dealing roles. Quote, we're really focusing on supports right now. The next 2 heroes we're going to be releasing are support heroes, says Keller, who teases that, quote, they bring some things to the game that we haven't seen before, some new mechanics, and really exciting ways of interacting with your own team, end quote. I agree with everything he said here, other than the fact that I don't really know what he's talking about when he says new mechanics or things we've never seen before. Not so much that part. The other stuff, though, and the kind of the article talks about it, that it offers the least amount of choice compared to the game's tank or damage dealing roles. And that problem was evident in Overwatch 1 with both support and tank. But now that tank is only 1 hero, and they added, I guess, technically, since Overwatch 2's launch, there's been 3 new tanks added, because Doomfist was moved to the tank role, Junker Queen was added, and Ramatra was added, so we've gotten 3 tanks basically since the start of Overwatch 2. The role has had way more diversity because you're only 1 tank player, so you can go 10 straight games or whatever on tank and play a different hero every single game. You can do that on damage as well because there's, 15, 16, 17 damage heroes, however many there are at this point. I don't remember. Might be more than that. But then with support, you have like 9 or 8. And there's only so much you can do there, right? I think it's 8. Might be 9. I don't remember exactly. But you can't. And there's 2 support players, so if you wanted to, there's only so many options you have, and support pairings matter a lot. Like, if your teammate picks Mercy, you can't really play Lucio, so that limits what you can pick. And that was one of those things that I think always had an issue with tank in the past, and now it's the problem with support. In Overwatch 1, one of the problems with tank was, if you wanted to go in and play D.Va, and your tank buddy goes and picks Hog, you can't pick D.Va. You just can't. Because the way the game is played, it just doesn't work that way. But now with 1 tank, you can play whichever tank you want. It's not that big a deal. With damage, there's always kind of pairings that work, and it's not as damaging because maybe you're running Cassidy and Widow, and you might think that overlaps. But those heroes have enough difference, and they have their place to play that you can really make those 2 work. And we've seen those metas all the time. You can run Genji Pharah. It's a weird composition. You don't see it all the time. But you can make it work. You can't really play Mercy and Lucio. It doesn't really provide the healing that you need it to provide. And just the overall just kind of utility and support that you get in other places. So now that is the problem with support, which was the problem way more with tank in Overwatch 1. Now that that's a problem that has been solved with tank, now support has that problem. And I have been saying for a while that the only real way you can fix that problem is adding new heroes. And originally they said there was going to be a tank, a support, a tank, a support. And I'm glad to hear them saying it's going to be tank, support, support, tank, presumably, based off of their previous statements. There needs to be more support heroes. They need to focus on the support roster. I think they need to add 2 support heroes for every other type of hero they add. In my opinion, the rotation for at least a while should be 1 tank, 1 damage, 2 support, every 4 heroes. That should be what it is. Not necessarily in that order. It should be, ideally, support, tank, support, damage, or tank, support, damage, support, something like that. Once we've gotten the support roster kind of where it needs to be. But they definitely need to be adding more support heroes to the game. And so I agree with Aaron in the sense that that is the most important role to kind of get right. And I think that is very, very important. And then they close here with, I could talk about the future all day and all that stuff. But that's really the end of this article and really the end of what I want to talk about today. So let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on this article, anything I talked about in this video, any potential or specific details, anything like that. I'd love to hear from you about it in the comments down below. Yeah, that's it for me for today. Like I said, if you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing for more content like this in the future. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.